Hello everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you for joining me. I will be your astrologer for the day. Wanted to bring you guys a video talking a little bit about eclipse season, getting ready for the nodal changes that are going to be happening in the new year. And this is going to be a full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus. Very excited to talk to you guys about this today. I've been working on this video a little bit, kind of compiling a lot of information. I will say this, I don't know if it's possible, if somebody doesn't mind actually creating the markers or putting in the timestamps, that would be really helpful, because I know there are some people in the astrological community that don't want to hear about all the things that are going on in the world. They can get anxious about some of the predictions with what's coming. And this will be a video that's a little bit different than what I usually do, because I really dug deep into some of the mythology of the fixed star associated with this eclipse, including how it's likely to affect the world. So if you are somebody who's sensitive to that stuff and you're not really in a place of being able to handle some of that, maybe a good time to just wait until this video processes. And hopefully we have some kind people in YouTube land that's willing to do the timestamps. At the end of this video, I am going to talk a little bit about how it's going to affect each and every one of the 12 signs. That will be more regarding the aspects of the eclipse from your ascendant. So if you just want to skip ahead and go, hey, I just want to hear how it's going to affect me, spare me all of the potentially kind of crazy news that's going to come as a result of this eclipse, totally fine. Those of you guys who want to dig deep, you are welcome to stay. I'll be reading some stuff and pulling some things from some of the books that I pulled from my bookshelf and talking a little bit about what is likely to happen as a result of the mythology connected to this eclipse. So let's talk a little bit about eclipses. Eclipses come in pairs, so we always see eclipses about every 6 months. We have a full moon lunar eclipse. So lunar eclipses are basically like full moons on steroids, and it's very emotional, okay? We think of the moon. The moon represents the collective, sometimes the subconscious realm. It's very active, and it can really manifest as a result of things that are going on with us emotionally, or I think like kind of like sublunarly, like the moon card, right? Things that we don't always expect or see coming that brings very kind of climactic events that gets an emotional reaction out of us. So when we have this full moon, 2 weeks later, we are then going to have a solar eclipse, and this will be the final solar eclipse in the sign of Sagittarius around December 4th. So when we're dealing with eclipses, it's like a 2-week window where certain things end and certain things begin. It's been like my belief, a lot of other people share this as well, that a lot of the events that transpire revolving around an eclipse is fated, right? Like these are things that were inevitable, they were going to happen. There is some sense of like destiny kind of knocking on the door going, okay, are you ready to step into the next lesson? Are you ready to step into the next phase? Especially when we are dealing with an eclipse where it's in a sign that we haven't really dealt with in terms of the nodes for the better part of like the last 9 or even 18, 19 years, right? Because you know, we see nodal returns every 19 years, and then every 9 years, we will still see similar eclipses. However, the eclipses will then be in the opposite sign. So if you're somebody who's gotten into studying this, you know what I'm saying. You're going to be like, yeah, I already know this. But this is the first time in almost 19 years that we are now seeing eclipses that revolves around a north node in Taurus. Now, some of you guys are looking at the transits going like, wait a second, the north node's still in Gemini. Correct. This is an out of sign eclipse. So the reason why it's an eclipse is because the moon is actually within a certain couple of degrees. Okay, it's just about, 3-4 degrees away from the north node. So it's going to affect the north node. So we will look at the ruler of this particular eclipse. In this case, because it's Taurus, we're going to talk a lot about what's going on with Venus. We're also going to talk a lot about the moon being exalted in Taurus. One thing that I will say is that when we are dealing with north node eclipses, the north node talks about what is mysterious, what is yet to be unveiled, what we haven't seen yet, and what is going to just kind of like pop at the time of the eclipse points. And equally, if you're somebody who's really hardcore into astrology, you also want to look at some of the midpoints, or it's a really simple thing when you're dealing with just looking at an eclipse. I will always look at the polarity, right? So if planets are getting ready to transit and make oppositions to the eclipse, which will be happening, Jupiter is going to square that because it's going to be in the late degrees of Aquarius. Soon, Mercury and Mars will also cross 26, 27, 28 degrees of Scorpio later this year. And it's also going to square the eclipse points. So there's a lot of action here. Saturn will square that next year. And it's really kind of driving home these very intense, what have been Saturn-Uranus squares all year, right? The push and pull, the being limited and then wanting to break free and like wanting to start something new. And Saturn wants us to commit and Uranus wants us to kind of go buck wild and try something very different. And so when I look at this, I go, okay, in the next year, as we start to see Saturn move to square this eclipse degree, as we start to see planets also conjunct next spring with the North Node, Saturn will square the nodes. It's just the astrology of 2022. It's almost like the last 2 years we've been in preparation for what's getting ready to be unveiled from these eclipses. In 2022, when we see the node square Saturn, when we begin to also see that Uranus conjuncts the North Node, and then we have a whole tailspin of eclipses in Taurus next spring, it's pretty safe to say collectively we're going in a completely different way, or direction, excuse me. So when we're dealing with the North Node, it's about coming into our destiny. So that's the good news. It's like the universe is saying, hey, we've wrapped up most of these lessons from Gemini. We've done all the communication. We've done all the focus. We've analyzed all the data, the facts, the gadgets, perhaps maybe even like new softwares. We've learned something new. We've learned to focus on our inner communities. Now, it's interesting because I think back to just what's happened the last 2 years. And I remember looking in 2017 and 2018 when the North Node was in Cancer. And I remember looking around being like, home and family is going to be so important. Our mental health, our emotional health and security, stability is so important. Well, little did we know we were going to spend an extended period of time at home, many of us cooped up with our families, learning more about our roots and how to better take care of and nourish ourselves, right? Then that North Node moved into Gemini. We got comfortable being at home and we started working remotely and we started really checking our media, fact-checking things that we read, perhaps reading books, buying books, learning new languages. Now, notice it's moving backwards, right? Now the North Node goes into Taurus. So what I love about the North Node in Taurus is that it's really going to put an emphasis and a focus on Taurus things. So stuff like money, resources, food, the earth, grounding, things that pertain to the senses like pleasure, right? Like Taurus is a sign that's a fixed earth sign that's ruled by Venus. So this is more, I think, on one hand, indulgences and where we can do too much, right? We could eat too much, we could spend too much. There can be this focus on materialism. Certainly there's a lot of yin and yang to all of the signs, but kind of like the more darker side of the Venusian sign of Taurus is laziness or perhaps getting a little too comfortable, right? But what people don't realize is that Taurus is also about survival. It's about getting back down to basics and learning and being aware and actually having a hand in what we eat, what we wear, what we value, what we're growing, right? It's literally getting your hands in the dirt. So what's going to be really fascinating is as a result of some of the eclipses that are happening in Scorpio, which is the polarity of Taurus. Scorpio deals more with psychological triggers, fear, death, regeneration, transformation, taxes. It's almost like this is the more invisible kind of water, emotional, psychological connections to the physical realm of Taurus. And they're very similar, right? The same way that, really, I believe the zodiac is made up of 6 signs. It's just you have polarity of the two. So they're complementary. So on one hand, if we have the North Node in Taurus, focusing on all of these topics, The South Node eclipses in Scorpio are certainly going to send us into a bit of a tailspin where we start thinking about, how much money we owe to other people, how much we're paying in taxes, if we're drowning in debt or loans or issues with credit cards, if people can't get some of those things, if they can't get resources, how it affects them psychologically, if things become super inflated, if we see taxes go up, if we find that there's scarcity, it's how people respond. Right? So they're going to play off of each other, as all eclipses do. Look at what's happened over the last 2 years. We had South Node eclipses in Sag. We've seen lots of issues and limitation with travel. As a result of that, people have been road tripping more, North Node in Gemini. People have been educating themselves or, like I said, working remotely. So instead of going out into the world, we've focused more on how we communicate and connect through screens, right? So there's a purpose for this. However, this particular eclipse and the aspects that it makes, that in itself to me is very fascinating. And I'm going to break it down aspect by aspect for you guys. But equally, I look back in what's happened in time when we had these eclipses. So just some things that I kind of pulled, it's been brought up a lot. Lots of other people have spoken about it. I have spoken about it a little bit previously, I think, on my podcast. But some of those episodes haven't come out yet. But I think about when the North Node eclipses were happening 18, 19 years ago, and we had a huge breakout with mad cow disease, right? And so Taurus, cows, cattle, big animals. I have a whole list of things that I'm predicting may happen. One of which is I think that we're going to see that there is like realizations that certain large animals are dying, they're passing away, right? And we're seeing like a mass either killing or disease or something that can happen, okay, with cows or other large animals. I think of animals that are being poached, especially with the opposition to the South Node in Scorpio. So we think about animals that need to be protected, land that needs to be protected, that needs to be preserved. And we start kind of realizing like, wow, okay, well, what are we putting into, in terms of resources, protecting these animals? And so this may come up a lot in the news. I also think that with the aspects to Pluto in Capricorn, there may be some like government orchestrated situations that deal with our food supply. And whether this is rationing or this is them starting to talk about issues with the food supply or even the supply chain in general. It's not just limited to meat, right? This is any food. This is anything that grows or anything that we harvest. And with Ceres being on the North Node in Gemini, I do think that this is an important topic. It might be something that we're just reading about and we're hearing about. But the difference is when we have planets move from Gemini to Taurus, it becomes less talk, more action. So the things that we've been talking about physically, we see physical transformation and realizations that, oh my God, now it's happening, right? The things that we've been reading about, now we're feeling it. And it can, in the later degrees of Taurus, trigger issues revolving around hoarding, mass buying, materialism, greed, right? All of these things that are like the later degrees of Taurus. On the flip side, it can also be really highlighting where big money, big business and things like that, or this need to consume is actually in turn negatively influencing us, because sometimes when we see transits with the North Node, there can be like this profound hunger, right, of not being able to get enough of something and needing more. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. All right, so I want to talk to you guys a little bit. I have a couple of things here. So let's talk about, I will reference all of my books. I swear I'm going to do a book video. People keep asking me, but if you guys saw the amount of books that I have, it's insane. And they're all over my office. This is a book that I really like by Rex Bills, the rulership book. This is like one of my books that I always keep on my desk. Great book for reference, especially when I'm kind of like racking my brain and thinking about well, how could, this play out under this house or this sign or whatever. So I'm just going to kind of scan through this. And if you have this book, it's page 319, and it's all about Taurus. And so I'm just going to kind of go through it. These are going to be some trigger words. It might be places, it might be things that you might start see kind of cropping up in the world. Okay, so obviously Taurus rules the month of April, architecture, art dealers, leather, bank tellers, bonds, certainly bonds as possessions or investments. That's going to be an interesting thing to see what's going on with the bond market. Cash, okay? Cash, cashiers. It's interesting. I had somebody the other day that was telling me like they went to go and pay for something and they handed somebody cash and they wouldn't take it. And we're noticing this, like there's coin shortages, there's some stores and institutions that won't take cash payments. They're only kind of saying, well, because of, what's going on in the world, we're only taking digital payments. And so I think cash, I also think metals, or land, things that you can physically hold, right? If you're somebody who's a Taurus, you've got like a second house stellium, you know what I'm talking about, that it's that wanting to have the cash in hand, and whoever has the money physically, it's going to be interesting to see as these eclipses start rolling out, how much value are we putting on physical money? And that's been a big topic, right, with Uranus and Taurus and the rise of crypto and all these new things where we're starting to talk about, how we are going to eventually start to kind of transition into what may be a future where we're cashless, or a future where certainly cryptocurrencies are kind of paving the way for us to move away from central banks, right? I'll spare you my rant on that, but cattle raisers, cattlemen, copper, coral. I think maybe like coral reefs, especially because the North Node will sextile Neptune, Uranus will sextile Neptune. I think there may be something that comes up about that where we start realizing like, well, can we start positively impacting and regrowing coral reefs and being able to preserve life in the oceans. Dublin, Ireland, that seems interesting to me. Emeralds, farming, feeding places for animals, fields, wheat, right? That's very Ceres, especially with the North Node conjunct the Sun. Taurus also rules cereal. Maybe that's why I like cereal so much. Florida, gluttony, jewels, jewelry, land, labor. There's a lot of places here. Leather workers, places like Maryland, Minnesota, Italy, Israel. Some people would argue the connections to this, but this is just what the book says. Possessions of any kind, music, New York City, profit lost. Stubbornness, tellers, the throat, tonsils, wealth, wheat fields. Okay, so just, Taurus things, right? Some of these things may come up, they may not come up. But in my mind, I keep thinking about like how we're going to be able to get cash, right? And what's going on with ATMs, or what's going on with tellers, or what's going on with physical things, especially because I think we're going to see lots of fluctuations, possibly even in what we value, whether this is precious metals or actual jewelry, things like that. I think we're going to see like lots of changes revolving around what people kind of value and what they're wearing, okay? In history, also, I was looking at the last time we had these eclipses, and especially right around like that, 25, 26 degrees. And we had similar eclipses in the fall of 1994, and also we had another lunar eclipse in the fall of 1937, November of 1975. But the big year that really stood out to me the most was what was going on in 1956. So I went and did some research, and I was like, what happened in 1956? 1958. I take that back. Let me double check this. 56, 58. Yeah, 56. And so I want to talk to you guys a little bit about what I found. Here we go. Significant events, key technology, popular culture. The siting where I'm getting this information is thepeoplehistory.com. So, here we go. U.S. Republican and Democratic National Conventions. What else was going on here? US, the first computer hard drive. Okay, it's pretty significant. What else is going on here? Cuba Revolution, US H-bomb tests. Italy Olympics. Not too much. But certainly I think probably one of the interesting things, if you go back and if you look at some of the timelines, especially with what was going on in like I said, the 90s I think was more what was going on with the mad cow stuff. Maybe even into the late 90s, early 2000s. But I'm really interested in also 1937. And here we go. Amelia Earhart disappears. U.S. Memorial Day Massacre in Chicago. Howard Hughes breaks his own transactional flight speed record. China, Battle of Shanghai. First blood bank opens in Chicago. That's interesting. I think that deals with the same degrees. I think it's earlier degrees, mid degrees. And the United States Golden Gate Bridge. I mean, there's tons of stuff, but I think the big thing when I look at what's coming is going to be Algol. And so Algol being the fixed star conjunct this around 26, 27 degrees. So for that, I've got a couple things. I'm going to read about the fixed stars in the chart, constellations, lunar mansions, and mythology. Oscar Hoffman. And instead of like me rambling and explaining it to you, essentially, there's two sides to this. Okay, so you're going to hear the textbook explanation. I'm going to talk to you about how I've seen it manifest in my clients' lives. But Algol describes piled up corpses, the demon's head, misfortune, violence, decapitation, hanging, electrocution, mob violence, dogged, violent nature, death, glamorous power of attraction, great seductive beauty. When it's conjunct or with the sun, violent death, extreme sickness. When it's conjunct or in aspects to the moon, violent death, extreme sickness. Okay. And with Mars, and I'm really looking at that Mars opposition, is that we may start seeing some of this stuff, right? In mythology, and a lot of people are going to be quick to be like, oh my gosh, Medusa was, mistreated. Yeah, she was. She's kind of similar to like Lilith in a way, except, Lilith escaped and Lilith was able to really expand on her dark femininity and be able to kind of find her place in the world. And yes, she was angry, right? She was angry and mad as a result of how she was treated. But Medusa's a little different, and Medusa was extremely beautiful, right? One of the most beautiful, goddesses at one time. Unfortunately, she was seeking security from another goddess and was taken and raped by another god and became very angry, very violent. There was a lot of jealousy revolving around what happened, and she wasn't protected, and she was turned into a monster. So some Greek and Roman mythological text suggests that her slaying or her beheading, right, was actually a sign of like being victorious, right? Even you'll see the shield. Who is it that has the shield? Perseus. So basically he carries a shield that has her head on it, right? And she's seen as like this monster, and you can't look at her, otherwise you're turned to stone. And the only way to kill her is to take the head off the beast. When in reality, this represents, and anybody who has Algol in their chart, or if you have any oppositions to those exact degrees, 26, 27 degrees of Taurus or Scorpio, you know what it's like to be persecuted, right? You know what it's like to be mistreated. You know what it's like to lose your head or to experience extreme loss or severing or separation or pain or being mistreated, basically. So that the polarity I have found to Algol also can be just as gnarly and just as nasty. Another book I want to talk about, the horary book, John Frawley. This is my homework book that I've been working through for my horary class. And he spoke about Algol as well. He says, Caput Algol, Medusa's head, the most unfortunate of the stars. In horary, the general idea is losing one's head. It can be literal, but don't keep any impulses to the grand opera that you might have of your horary judgments. Yet such glory events do happen. Can I buy this? Will I get the job? Losing one's head can usually be metaphorically. However, in the past, when we've had these eclipses, I think about what was going on in the Middle East, and we were seeing that it was like becoming really prominent, that they were putting people on video and they were actually like, beheading people. So it can be literal, right? It can be, but here's what's interesting. Being that, it's in Taurus and the moon, it'll have lots of essential dignity if placed on it. So it can also be talking about people being unstable, being unable to cope, right? So one thing I think is also that Algol connected to Algul, that's the connection to alcohol, spirits, right? Demons, entities, attachments, but things that come through the head. So we think about neurological issues, neurological disorders, people who are having mental issues, mental ailments. And I'm not going to specify where I think these things are coming from. I'm just talking kind of loosely that we may see really prominent things in the news revolving around mental health, rise in suicide rates, issues with alcohol. We're noticing that there's definitely a lot more substance or alcohol abuse that's going on. It's not just because it's the holidays. It's kind of like a wide known thing that the holidays can be a very difficult time for a lot of people. And it can be a time where there's definitely higher suicide rates or issues with abuse. But this is like tenfold. And we call it spirits for a reason, right? Spirits, alcohol, and how it can lower one's vibration. And it can put you in a position of being more susceptible to entity attachments or having things that are kind of affecting you or influencing you mentally or psychologically, right? So any number of these things might become more prominent in the news, not to get too graphic, but it could even be people who are opting to commit suicide, or we're just noticing that people are having like neurological issues that are leading them to the point, or psychological issues leading them to the point where they're having suicidal thoughts. And when these eclipses happen, it's meant to be eclipsing out and kind of showing where the light and where the dark is. That's what an eclipse is. So during these periods of eclipses, there can be portals, right? Energy portals that are opening where there is more of this energy that's flooding in. But it's my belief system that it takes a little bit of light to illuminate the dark. It's part of why I do the work that I do. It's part of why I make these videos, to be able to talk to people and kind of prepare them, especially when we're going through some of these cycles, to be more aware that these energies are around. So this isn't like some sobriety speech that I'm giving people, but especially around the time of the eclipses, when there's intense things happening, coping with alcohol may not be the option. If you are somebody who's having real mental, emotional, psychological triggering thoughts or suicidal thoughts, or you're dealing with people who are going through that, it should be taken seriously, especially people who have some of these prominent placements in their progress charts, or in any one of their major placements with their conjunctions to their planets, right? So people can be more susceptible to this. You can be more susceptible. But when I think about losing one's head, I don't think about necessarily just decapitation or suicide. I think about how are things getting into our mind, right? What are we absorbing? What are we watching? What are we thinking? What are we becoming fixated on? How is this eclipse somehow psychologically triggering us and making us freak out and go, I don't have enough. I don't have enough money. What am I going to do without my bank account? What am I going to do without food? Oh my God, there's not enough toilet paper, right? So it's going to trigger us in a very primal way. And I feel like the aspects from Pluto to this eclipse is in a very, very, very big way being orchestrated that way. So part of me feels inclined to tell people, you can buy into the fear, or you can decide to take a step back and not be lured into temptation, right? That can be Taurus. Temptation being, if you're willing to, surrender this, I will give you that. If you're willing to, take a shot, I will give you a free hamburger type of shit. If you are willing to, you know, put your money into this, I will give you that. So greed and materialism can run all-time high, right? And so certainly a lot of, you know, books will and teachers will say that's a really evil star. Yeah, it can be associated with some bad stuff. On the flip side, okay, and this is where I kind of come in and I'm going to interject some of my thoughts. I have found that algol can, when it's placed appropriately or when it's used in positive aspects with Jupiter, which we have during this eclipse, can produce people who are willing to rise above that. It can be a very strong protector against black magic. So you guys have watched my videos, and usually I'm like pretty, you know, kind of clean cut with my astrology, but I have a real interest in like metaphysics and energy and vibration and magic. And I have found that seals, sigils, jewelry, other things, even mirrors and things that can be etched and stuff connected with Medusa or with algol can be used as a very, very, very strong protective energy from some of these fields. So if you're somebody who has a very prominent placement of the late degrees of Taurus in your chart, getting jewelry or even having something that you can use as a protective field for when you're doing ritual work or when you're meditating is a positive way to be able to utilize the energy. Some things that I have in terms of predictions, and then I'll get into the aspects, is this is very strongly tied also to the Venus retrograde, okay? Because Venus is the ruler of this eclipse because Venus rules Taurus. The moon is exalted, so yes, we're going to look at the moon a lot. But Venus is in Capricorn at the time, and Venus is in a trine to Uranus, right? So it's like quick, sudden, innovative changes. It's at 12. There's been a lot of repetitive 12 degrees, which is about what's hidden, what's mysterious, what we don't see, what's going on behind closed doors, what disappears, what may be associated or connected to Neptunian things. Liquor, okay, liquids, drugs, pharmaceutical drugs. Things that are connected with churches and private spaces or photos or videos. So these are all things that may start surfacing. Venus in Capricorn is very committed, very strong. She's really, I think, more about long-term goals, especially when she's in a sextile to Mars in Scorpio. So we've got a lot of like really stabilizing, building energies that kind of seems to suggest that this is an eclipse that's also really strongly talking to us about where we're going in terms of our resources, our control, our survival, right? But Venus is in her shadow. Venus will go and on to conjunct Pluto, and then mid-December we'll start retrograding back. So technically she'll retrograde back to about 11 degrees. So she's right just having moved into the shadow period. So something about this eclipse seems to insinuate that as we start to see Venus go through her retrograde in December, all the way, I think, until the end of January, maybe beginning of February, this plays a role, right? So Venus in Capricorn. Women and women in government, women in power. It can also be talking about people in uniform, the government, what the government is doing with our money, especially because you've got some really nice aspects between Mars and Venus. It makes me wonder if there's going to be more talk about taxes or debt or what we're dealing with in terms of the debt ceiling. That can be some big topics. Venus trine Uranus, though, is definitely innovative. And I believe that we saw this also when Venus was in a trine from Virgo to Uranus and when Venus was conjunct Uranus. But trines are free-flowing energy. So essentially what you're going to see here is that whatever is coming up is about giving us a heads up what the Venus retrograde is going to be kind of about. And it's going to be a particularly crazy one. It'll be a really gnarly one. So I'll do a video on that, don't worry. But this is an important thing to watch because every single time Venus retrogrades back to 12 degrees, it'll hit it several times, is going to bring up these themes revolving around the eclipse. Okay? Finally, then, in the new year, Venus will move forward and she is going to move closely with Mars through the sign of Capricorn. And she will start to conjunct Pluto again and also start trining this eclipse degree. So the Venus retrograde is very much going to shine a light on these topics of money, relationships, security, stability, but what control governments have, or higher powers or elites have over what we have for security, what we eat, what money we spend, what we can actually attain, right? The moon is exalted in Taurus, so this suggests that it's a part of moving collectively towards more stability, right? And how we are going to be able to get everybody into a state of feeling more solid, or having enough food, or having enough money, or having enough pleasure, right? Pleasure is definitely a theme here. I find it interesting that the sun is in very close proximity, conjunction-wise, to Mercury. It's only a couple degrees away, so technically 6 degrees. It's within that 10-degree range. It's under the beams of the sun, so in a way that Sun-Mercury kind of gets obliterated. It can be like, you know, paranoia, right, or fear, or uncovering. Certainly there's a lot that's going to be going on as a result of this eclipse really into the new year, and it's going to kind of highlight and really show us, I think, where certain information must come out, right? I have that Sun-Mercury conjunction, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm kind of conspiracy theorist-y. I try to keep it neutral, but I'm always looking for the deeper meaning. Like, okay, but what's really going on? Like, what's going on behind the scenes? What are we not seeing? And so Mercury, Sun, and Scorpio, Sun, and Mercury wants to dig, right? And notice that these are both in a sextile to Pluto. So that's telling me that there's something that's being highlighted. There's something that's a light's being shown essentially on the state of something. And Scorpio is what? Debt, what we owe, what we're afraid of. It's about sex. It's about death. It can be very much about taxes. So I think the theme of, this whole stuff that's going on in the United States about, how much privacy do we have? Scorpio needs privacy. How much privacy do we have when it comes to our banking and our money and our resources? And how much privacy do we have also when it comes to our body, our health, our wellness, right? Because of the aspects to Venus. Venus is about our health and documents. So this is going to be a big topic. And we're also coming into, the Pluto return for America. If you guys haven't seen that video, check it out. I put a video out on that. I'm going to do an update probably closer to the end of the year. The days following here on the 23rd, when Mercury crosses the polarity point to the eclipse, is going to be a day to watch, because it's going to be some colorful conversations and facts and media and things that are being put out, especially because the ruler of Mercury in Scorpio is Mars, and Mars is going to closely follow. And then when Mars comes and also joins this degree around December 8th, it's going to trigger that as well. And Mars is in a sextile to Pluto. Mars is sextiling Venus, and Venus is making that conjunction. So there's some big news coming out. All right, so let me get on to my predictions. Oh, that's the new moon. That's today. Okay. Heads of state changing. And I think that's also partially connected to the Venus retrograde. But we think of like heads rolling or people being cut. There may be massive job cuts where they're making big cuts on employees, and they're letting people go, or they're letting people know that they're going to be letting people go. Obviously, this isn't like news, because we're hearing a lot of stuff about the mandates and people being told, you either do this or this is what happens. So we're going to hear more about that, right? And the reality of how that is affecting bigger businesses. So if we've got people who are not showing up to work, and it's starting to affect big business, and it's going to hit their pocketbooks, and then they realize that they need people to come in and work. I also think a lot of it's going to be about labor. Like, Taurus is labor. It's physically working. So like the labor unions and the labor movement, and whether or not, they're being supported, and if they're being paid a fair wage, if they're working in environments that are safe, right? But I say head of state changes, and this may not necessarily be here just in America, but just in general. This is because of the Pluto trine. So Pluto trine the moon, all the oppositions, we might see that major CEOs step down, major political figures are you know, either dying or being told like, that's it, you're out of here, we're removing you. I think we're going to see this play out really over the next couple of months. It may be most prominent, I would say, December and January. And then again, when planets cross these eclipse points in April or May, because it's a late degree of Taurus, it's going to end up being right around mid-May that you're going to see a lot more effects of this start happening. Big company changes, we're going to find and start to realize that from an economic standpoint, after coming out of being in a hole for 2 years with pandemic, that we're just not seeing those job numbers that we thought were going to come back. We start realizing that there's mass amounts of people who are either quitting or being let go, and how that's really starting to affect people. We may see a real rise in issues right around the holidays economically, and whether or not people are showing up to work, and how that's going to actually in line kind of affect, you know, the supply chain, and whether or not we have enough stuff for people to buy for Christmas, you know, first world problems. I also think that this is about losing one's head over what's going on in the media, because it is making a sextile to Neptune. So it's like people losing their head and flipping out and freaking out about what's going on as a result of some of these situations. And so Algol, I think of like The Exorcist, like, you know, her head spins around and she like spits stuff out everywhere. It's kind of a gross reference, but anybody who's got like their sun or their rising or their moon or maybe even their Mercury conjunct this degree, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I have about 4 or 5 people in my life who I'm close to, who I know, who have their moon in these degrees. And they can be so amazing and calm and sweet and peaceful, because that Taurus moon really like loves peace and stability. But you screw with their food, you screw with their money, you screw with their family, you do them wrong in some way, and it's like you literally see their head spin around and they can just go bananas. Like they can literally like lose their head. So we're going to see this, and we're going to see people who are being reacting as a result of the influences of the eclipse, and psychologically just like being really willing to just go to town on some people. And yeah, issues revolving around food supplies, security, land, physical things. I think we're going to hear a lot about this too. It's an interesting topic, especially because I've been really interested in like hearing some of the stuff that's come out of like the World Economic Forums. And there's been talk about like moving into a society where we don't own anything, which I think is scary. When they're talking about, well, you know, you're not going to have to own houses. You're not going to have to own land. You're going to rent everything, right? So that's kind of like weird. And I start wondering, what we're going to start seeing as a result of these eclipses, and what comes out in terms of perhaps technology, because this is in a Gemini degree, it's at 27, connected to technology and the brain. Okay, so we think like the Neuralink stuff that's going to be coming out, what they're doing that's going to potentially be triggering or affecting our brain psychologically, if they're going to start coming out with new treatments and things that will combat depression or mental, emotional, psychological things, maybe new innovations also that we start learning more about the brain, or perhaps even brain surgery. While this is not ruled by Taurus, that's actually Cancer. The moon is in Cancer, so I could see how the two connections are made. I also think about like taking off the head of the beast in that mythology. And I was reading another article the other day that was talking about how there's this new, they're experimenting with this new worm. And it's like a worm that they are talking about possibly putting in the bodies of soldiers to combat potential biochemical warfare. And if you look at this little worm, it's literally this little worm without a head. And I'm like, it's literally, it's like alcohol. And I start thinking about what we're going to hear and what's going to be coming from these eclipses about what they're putting in food, what they're putting in medication, what they're wanting to put in our bodies, what they're wanting to put in our brains, right? Or what they're pumping. Okay, this can even be on TV. Starting to see, you know, images on the internet, or all kinds of like really gluttonous and really indulgent commercials that we're going to be seeing during sports games and other things. It's going to start psychologically triggering people. And Algol does produce anger and rage. So the one thing that I would say is that like fear is a big topic whenever you're dealing with Scorpio. And with this fixed star, I think a lot of it is about if we're going to allow fear and anger and violence and hostility to overtake us, and if we're holding space for that, right? Because the way to combat that is to neutralize it and go, I'm not buying into it. I don't need these things. I think a lot of people, especially if you have planets on the Scorpio-Taurus axis, are going to start kind of really getting more into like minimalism. with the South Node in Scorpio, and realizing I don't need these things. I don't need to be living on credit cards. I don't need to keep up with the Joneses. I don't need the big house. I don't need the expensive car. It's not worth selling my soul to be able to have these things. And I want you to think about that, because that's going to be a big topic, is where is our freedom being limited because of the expense that it's taking for us to bankroll our lives, right? Constantly paying off student debt, constantly paying off credit cards, constantly needing to get that new iPhone and this, that, and the other. And where our priorities are changing, our focus on stability and security is changing, where we'd rather put a couple $100 into growing a garden than going out to dinner, right? And really doing the work and getting our hands in the dirt and learning how to do that and being self-sufficient. Let's read the Sabian symbol. So we're going to be reading for 28 of Taurus. We round up. You guys probably are sick of me saying that. Okay, 28 of Taurus, a woman pursued by mature romance. No time like the present. The symbol speaks to the appreciation and the fact that there is no point beyond which fullness of life cannot be experienced. It also speaks to the faith and refusal to accept defeat or loss at the end of a matter. The image of a woman being pursued by a mature romance expresses the deeper joy to be found in the experience when it comes after its appointed time has passed. There's no time like the present is for seizing opportunity. The potential exists, it can be realized. The positive at its highest, the symbol speaks to the unquenchable hope, patience, and refusal to recognize limitations. Negative can be disillusionment. Refusal to take chances and willingness to accept lesser than what is available rather than wait for better that may come tomorrow. The accent is on serendipity, something that may have been given up, hoping may suddenly appear on your doorstep. The greatest advantage lies in recognizing the opportunity when it knocks. Everything comes at its own appointed time. Guard against giving up too soon, accepting second best because you're afraid you won't get what you really want. There's going to be a lot of temptation. There's going to be a lot of, do you want this? You can have this. It's going to look really good. It's going to look really shiny, right? But it comes at a cost. So I want you guys to think about that, because there's a whole aspects with the Pluto and everything. There's a darker, more sinister thing that's coming from this. Okay, so let's get into the aspects. Moon's exalted in Taurus, like I said, it's conjunct the North Node. So there is some need to be focusing collectively on the North Node and the Moon, how we feel. Do we feel secure? Do we feel stable? It's an out of sign, so it's kind of like disjointed in a way, because Gemini just wants to talk about it. The Moon wants to be about it. So what we will find is that when planets trigger this or become conjunct this degree or square this degree, I'll give you those dates, we will see physical change happen, right? Especially when the North Node conjuncts it, which is going to happen very early on in the year. Sun conjunct Mercury is really kind of blowing something out of the water in terms of information. With an opposition to the Moon, it might be things that people reject, things that people don't like, things that people question. They start to wonder, does that feel right? How does that disrupt my emotional wellness, my groundedness, my family, my home, right? My security. So it can be a little shocking and off-putting, and people can have a hard time really connecting the dots emotionally. Moon is in a trine to Pluto, which I like. I like Moon trine Pluto. It's emotionally powerful. It's about transformation. It's about breaking something down to build something new, the need to let something die off to bring something new in. And it's very physical. It's tangible, right? However, Algol trine Pluto in Capricorn makes me feel like there's a really dark, sinister government plan that's being put into motion. And as a result of this eclipse, we're going to start to see the dominoes fall. That's going to set everybody up to start questioning their security. Okay, that's the astrology. And with Pluto and the ruler of Pluto, I guess technically because it's in Capricorn, is Saturn. We also see that Saturn is still in a square to Uranus. Now there's one more square coming right around the end of December, in the midst of coming off of two eclipses, in the midst of a Venus retrograde, and that's when we're going to start to see the dominoes fall. It's my experience the third square is going to be the big pow. So something's going to happen right around Christmas time as a result of the Saturn-Uranus square. We've also got Sun and Mercury in a sextile to Pluto in Capricorn. So you're going to see a lot of Scorpio placements wake up and go, what the fuck's going on? Something stinks. Something's off here. Like something's about to end. I have this feeling. It's the hunch. It's the intuition, right? So something like that's going to happen. It's also about communicating and acting and talking about personal power and how we have the willingness to change or to be courageous, to be fearless, to stand up, to protect, to cut, to sever, to distance, to let something die off. Venus is trine to Uranus, like I said, so it's now in the shadow. Huge innovations in money, relationships, resources. I think we're going to hear about this. Possibly, I think there's going to be more talk about where the United States is opting to possibly go in a more digital direction with our currency. Stay tuned for that, because that's definitely what's happening, especially if you look at what's happening in America's chart. Mercury in Scorpio trine Neptune. Awesome time for divination, awesome time for writing down your dreams, meditating, seeing what comes through, learning to read between the lines. It can be hard to communicate because these are water placements, so it's a lot about the feeling. It's like, I can't quite put my finger on it, but something feels off. Like, that doesn't resonate with me. So there's a lot of like needing to check in with oneself and like asking myself, like, is this real or is this fear? Is this fear-based? Am I making decisions out of fear? Am I making purchases out of fear? Am I doing things because I feel like I need these physical things? Mars squares Saturn in Aqua. So days before the eclipse, it's building. Really, the energy from the new moon all the way up until this eclipse is just buck wild because of all the squares to Saturn. So it's been really building over a 2-week period. But the days leading up, 3-4 days leading up to this eclipse, y'all going to feel it because you're going to start seeing that the squares are becoming super active. Sun does square Jupiter. And I guess for me, I would say that that's kind of the silver lining, is that you've got planets in the late degrees of Scorpio squaring Jupiter. So it's exposing something for the collective. It's killing something off for the collective. It's possibly transforming something for the collective. And it's so the collective can adapt in the future, especially next year when planets start to cross these degrees. So here's where I'll give you guys some more insight. Like I said, when Mars opposes this degree, this will be something to watch around December 8th. When Jupiter squares this degree of the eclipse, which will also be right around mid-December, Jupiter's in that 27 degrees. When Venus and Pluto are going to be trying these degrees at that same time around the 20th. But I'm more actually interested in what's happening in the new year. So when planets go into here we go. Ceres on the North Node, mid-January. So that's going to be talking about crops, food, what we're growing, what we eat, wheat, but whether or not we're dealing with massive depression. Ceres can be about depression, separation, isolation, and from physical things. So Ceres on the North Node, that's been kind of happening already, but in Taurus, we're going to see it. So it could also be famine. It can be, crops that aren't growing, things like that. But I'm looking for when Saturn comes to square. It'll get close, but it's not going to do that completely. And when the sun squares that, this will bring up these themes again. February 15th, okay? When Mercury moves to square these degrees around March 7th and 8th. When Mars and Venus go to square these degrees, April 1st, April 10th, and then down the road when Mercury crosses this degree, although Mercury will retrograde back to this degree, so that'll be around April 26th. When the sun crosses this degree around May 17th. And yes, Mercury will retrograde back to this around the end of May. What's interesting at the time is that the nodes will have been in a square to Saturn, okay? And Saturn's ruler in Aquarius is Uranus. Uranus is in Taurus. So big things happening with money, resources, politics, whether or not we still have major social limitations, and there's going to be much more social unrest next year as a result of these aspects. And I think kind of like the big one is going to be when Uranus is coming into a conjunction with the North Node. Now, Venus will cross this degree around June 19th and 20th. The North Node and Uranus will, and I'll talk about this down the road, but it starts coming into a conjunction actually with Mars here in August. Okay. And then finally, at the end of 2022, when Saturn goes to square this, it's like this hard realignment with North Node Uranus. It's innovating our food, innovating with technology, innovating our money, right? Innovating our bodies, the physicality, innovating beauty even, money. All of these things are going to happen. So the eclipses are ushering this in. When does the North Node hit this degree? It'll be early. Right here, right around mid-February. Now the North Node being there will probably reveal more, especially with the moon, because it's going to bring that eclipse up again. So look for that right around February 9th. Just stay tuned. I'm going to do more videos about some of this stuff. Like I said, I'm already started working on my Venus retrograde video and talk to you guys a little bit about what to expect from that. Equally, I'm also going to do, I think, another America Pluto return video, because there's more going on, especially as I'm seeing some of these things happen. Like, and I'll say this until I get this video out. The gangbusters of planets moving through Capricorn this year, holy cow. It's going to be something. And I'm really proud to live in America, which is not something that I say all too often. But I'm kind of stoked to be here because we're kind of on this revolution where there can be profound change. And I'm seeing people who are in uniform, firefighters, police officers, nurses, first responders, all of these people. It's not being televised. You're not seeing this going on TV, but the protests, the marching, the walkouts, all these things that are happening as a result of them feeling like they need to stand up. This Venus retrograde is going to be very interesting to see what happens with some of these people. And with the conjunctions to Pluto of whether or not they lead the way to freedom, okay? And if they're going to help change and transform the system or help change and transform government, we're going to see that happen. But all of that is trining the North Node. So it's about our physical bodies and protecting our physical bodies. And for that, I'm like super appreciative. And I consider myself very lucky because I work for myself. I'm independent. I really strived to do that the last couple of years because I knew that it was going to be so important for my livelihood to be independent and not to be tied down to a job where I felt like I had to sell my soul just to be able to survive, just to be able to live and to just barely get by. And so a lot of the changes that I made the last couple of years were in preparation for this moment in time, knowing that when this came, it was going to be so important for me to focus on my security, my stability, so I can keep helping other people. So I'm super thankful for that. I'm going to ask you guys to pay attention to what's going on. Do not get caught up in the third dimension, the material reality of what you must have. Don't give in to scare tactics. Don't give in to people who are telling you they're going to withhold food or money. Okay? This is teaching us to become more independent. Start a garden, learn how to grow things, learn how to start reevaluating and rearranging your priorities, and it's really going to help on a psychological level adapt with some of the changes that are coming, and also avoid some of the strings being attached in the world. Those of you guys who have fixed placements from 24 to 29 degrees, so Taurus, you'll experience the conjunction. Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, you guys are all going to experience the square. And I would say get with the fucking program when the change happens, because it's helping you better kind of navigate some of the squares that are going to be happening next year. It's uncomfortable. Squares produce change. Change is good. It's inevitable. Earth and water signs from 24 to 29 degrees, you are going to experience either a sextile or a trine, which in your case is great emotionally. If you're experiencing these sextiles as a water sign, it's going to help you actually put emotional charge is going to help create physical change. And for the earth signs, you're going to experience earth trines, which is actual physical changes. You're like, I'm moving this, I'm selling this, I'm buying this, I'm changing that. That's how you're going to experience it. Fixed sun, moon, and risings, specifically the risings, I think are what are going to probably get kind of hit the hardest, especially I would say, I mean, all of them, but Scorpio risings, I would say really pay attention to what's happening between the squares. Leo also, you're kind of getting it from all different angles because we've got planets in Taurus and we've got stuff that's moving through Scorpio, so for you as well. All right, so here's where we're going to get into the predictions of each of the 12 signs. Let's get into that. Listen for your rising sign, then your sun sign for these predictions to make sense. For Aries, you've got a full moon, lunar eclipse, and that's happening in your second house. Okay, Uranus is there as well. There's a bunch of planets in your 8th house. So you've been going through this the last 2 weeks as a result of that moon in Scorpio. This was all about you being in a situation where your resources are changing, you're rearranging things, money can be going in, money can be going out. But generally, this is like highlighting where there's more of a need to focus on your resources, the money you make. Okay, so with planets going through your 8th house, it can be about how you're talking to a spouse about a joint, income or resources or quitting a job or paying something off. But a full moon here can be about a big purchase. It can also be just about really putting a huge focus on your self-esteem and your security, and your diet, what you're eating, right? So that can be something else. I think for many Aries risings, it's paving the way for future security and building your own security and building your own wealth, or taking more of an active role in making your own food or what you're eating, or knowing where your food is coming from, investing and changing money around. I've seen a lot of Aries risings that have, or people who have Uranus going through their second house that have become very interested in crypto, renewable energy. The Lovers. So to me, this is kind of suggesting that the North Node in Gemini is still playing a huge role. It's having conversations revolving around resources and money, needing to talk about it. Makes sense with Mercury in your 8th house. Choices and options, what you find pleasurable. It can also be about you making a big purchase, or buying something for someone, or feeling like you need to give to somebody in a very big way. The Lovers card also does talk about divine love, connection, romance, and like what we value, and realizing that in the midst of hard times, what you value may actually be people and your connection to people, and how people prove to be very valuable and help you and assist you in some way. Okay. For Gemini rising, oh boy, this is an eclipse in your 12th house. Staying grounded at all costs. That's kind of the, oh, excuse me, I jumped to Gemini. How can I forget Taurus? Taurus, you're the star of the show. So this is an eclipse in your 1st house, Taurus. And if it's your rising sign, then it's going to be about, profound changes with your body, a 2.0 version of you that emerges, a new style, being very connected to your body, how you feel, standing up for yourself, focusing on the relationship with yourself and your values, which, by the way, in the midst of these eclipses, Taurus, do not always mix well with other people. Not everybody is going to share your same value system, and not everybody is also going to agree on how you spend money. You may come off as somebody who's a little bit more selfish as a result of this eclipse. And there is like some sense of you kind of going like, okay, I'm not cutting off a relationship, but I'm focusing more on me and what I need to do and like moving forward, which can really rub other people the wrong way with oppositions in your 7th and squares to your 10th house transit right now with Saturn. I get the vibe that there can be some sense of you going, I don't want to work for other people anymore. I'm starting my own thing. Or I don't want to be so attached to this particular partnership anymore. I need to start also kind of paving a way for myself. Pay really close attention to your body. That's the one thing that I would really say that you want to be aware of what's going on right now. 4 of Coins. So it's about holding on to what you value. There can be a sense of having issues sharing and being like, that's not yours, that's mine, or I don't want to share, or I need to be more selfish with my time. I need more me time. Something like this could be going on. And it's fine, but don't hold on too tightly to anything, to money, to who you used to be, how you used to look, your old ways of being. It's trying to kind of get you to realize that while it is important for you to have boundaries, it's also equally important for you to give. For now, Gemini and Gemini rising, 12th house eclipse can have you a little shooketh about your security. It can have you in a situation where you're going back and forth and you're like, oh my goodness, is it all going to work out? Am I going to be able to get the money? Am I going to pay the bill? The 12th house is a really magical place though. So it can be really highlighting like some situation that's washing out that you've been worried about that actually kind of works out okay. It can be highlighting the need for you to go on a retreat, heal, focus on what's going on with your spirituality. But 12th house eclipses are like curveballs. There's usually something that you don't see coming. And with that eclipse, I think about also Venus that is moving into your 8th house. So it can be that money suddenly shows up. There's a sudden inheritance. There is a sudden bill. Things like that can be kind of going on as a result of this eclipse for you. 3 of Wands. The good news is it seems like you have a plan. You're like, it's okay. We're just going to roll with the punches. We just keep moving. It's going to be fine. Like, we just stay to the path, which is great. I feel like it's also whatever is coming as a result of this eclipse, it's clearing it out and letting you know so you can proactively plan. You got a bit of a wild Venus retrograde that's coming in your 8th house, Gemini. So when it comes to like resources and somebody else's money, if some of these problems are coming up now, it's important for you to come up with a plan and be able to know how to move forward. To me, it seems like you'll be able to, and then some, like you're actually maybe even already aware that some of these things are taking place, and you're just kind of opting to be like, I'm not going to allow that to kind of trigger me and send me into a death spiral. I'm going to be super focused on where we're going, not where I've been. Cancer and Cancer rising. This is an 11th house eclipse for you, which is great for friends, associations, projects with friends, parties, get-togethers, gatherings. You know, you're super friendly with Taurus energy because it creates a sextile for you. So there is some sense of having friends perhaps in high places that help support you or shine a light on you or bring you more emotional security, which is really lovely. This is also polarity to your 5th house, so it can have some kind of effect on children and how you feel about children or responsibility for children. It can even be like a kid's birthday party and you invite your friends over. Something like that can happen. Ace of Wands. To me, it seems like having friends in high places, new projects that are going to start happening, the opportunity to get really passionate about something and get it moving and shaking. It's definitely creative. It's brand new. It's fresh. And it's something that may even give you the opportunity to like travel or be able to kind of find that you're just having more experiences and you're having more fun. You're moving around more and you're doing things. This may also insinuate that as a result of this meeting or this get together or this gathering, everything kind of shifts. And then suddenly you're in a situation where you're like, whoa, like, okay, I met the right people. And now I can actually facilitate this project. Like, and it's actually going places. So very exciting for you. Leo. This is a big old eclipse in your 10th house. Great for career if you have been waiting to get a job, waiting to start something, waiting to launch something. If you have been just waiting for your moment in the sun, like Leos do, pay attention to what happens. Watch for conflicts with superiors, though. I could see where there's going to be some power struggles, either with a boss at work or some really intense egos, maybe even, where you're going back and forth with a partner. And the 10th house isn't just about work. It's about your status in the world. So it's where you go from being single to married, or from being married to divorced, or being, you know, an employee to doing your own thing. And it's almost like there is this revolution going on in your life, and it's going to take center stage. And it's all about whether or not, I think, you're really going to stand up for yourself and stand up for your values. The Devil. This is talking about Saturn, okay? So this is saying the limitations, like the boss that's just on your back, or the work that's never ending, or the constant feel of being like not allowed to really come into your own. And this can come from anyone because it's coming from your 4th house of home and family, your emotions, your relationships, your career. It's all coming in different angles. But because there's a North Node eclipse happening that's going to be taking place in your 10th, it's all about you and how you assert yourself in the world, and whether or not you're going to break free of these limitations of letting other people hold you back or letting other people hold you down. And so this can be saying there is a sense of you maybe being addicted to working, being addicted to drama, being addicted to people who, you know, constantly limit you, or things that limit you that you need to clear out. Venus is going to go retrograde also in your 6th house, Leo. So be mindful if that there's a job change coming, or you're ready to quit, or you want to clear house, you're going to start seeing there could be things that happen at work that you're like, hell no, I'm not abiding by these rules. I don't want to do this. I'm not going to show up for work at 6 in the morning. You're crazy. You're giving me too much work. Things like that can start happening. And then it's setting the stage for you realizing there needs to be a schedule or an actual job change later this year. Virgo and Virgo rising, this is your 9th house. This deals very specifically with your beliefs. This is a sister sign for you, so that's the good news, is that it is going to be supportive. You're going to see positive aspects to your personal planets in Virgo. But the 9th house is like foreign travel, philosophy, beliefs, school, legal stuff, publishing. So an eclipse here can also be talking about, with the polarity to your third house, any legal matters pertaining to vehicles or accidents. Watch for that. Any issues pertaining to travel or travel delays or scheduling delays, where you're having a crisis of beliefs. Like, I love when there's a North Node eclipse in the 9th, because it can be insinuating there's a big move coming, or there's a new course that you're going to start, or you're going to go and start college, or you're going to take a new, you're going to enter into a new program. Maybe you decide that you want to publish a book. A guru or a mentor can show up into your life during this time as well. That's what happened when I had those eclipses. So what does it mean for Virgo? 5 of Wands. I know you want to preach and I know you want to tell people, but not everybody's going to share your same vision and your belief system. And there can be like a lot of combative energy that's going on as a result of this eclipse, where you're kind of at odds with certain people. And part of the lesson is for you to learn to kind of take a step back and kind of go, you know what, if they're not going to see it, I'm not going to waste my time. I don't want to beat my head against a wall, because there can be conflict. 5 of Wands can like literally be people who are like, coming at you and you're feeling like you're being attacked. The good news is that, like I said, this is an eclipse that's going to make positive aspects between not just your personal planets, but also Pluto in your 5th. So it's, what does your heart believe? What does your heart want? Not everybody's going to share those ideas. Steer clear of any conflict, especially if there's any conflict with coworkers or people at work. That's something else that I would say can kind of come up with some of these angles from the squares to Saturn and Jupiter in your 6th. For Libra and Libra rising, this is an eclipse happening in your 8th house of other people's money, death, sex, taxes, inheritance, all that stuff. But it's psychologically how you deal with and how you process the changes that are going on in your life, and whether that's learning to be more financially or sexually or emotionally intertwined with another person, and being able to be aware of that. There can be a sudden unexpected expense, but the North house in the 8th wants you to receive. So many Libra risings are going to notice that there's just more giving energy, but the giving can not just come from like somebody who gives you a bonus or somebody who gives you a nice gift. The giving can come from an inheritance. The giving can come from somebody passing and leaving you something. The giving can come from taxes that you overpaid, right? Things like that. So with this eclipse for Libra, you are dealing with the topic of death and transformation more than most of the other signs, okay? So I just want you to be aware of that, especially because of the trines that it's making to Pluto in your 4th. On one hand, I could see like your home changing, transforming. Maybe you're looking at getting a loan, applying for a home loan so you can buy a house or renovate a house. Maybe you're looking at the resources that are coming from your family, or taxes, property taxes, right? Or where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. It does create a funky angle to your personal planets in Libra. So you start shifting more from, what's best for everybody else to like, what's best for me and my immediate people, 2 cups. Definitely there can be like unions, get-togethers, there can be weddings, engagements, things where people give you things. This is about people coming to you and saying, do you want this? So people may be offering you that too. People might want to invest in you. They might want to invest in your ideas. That can be something else that's going on. So be mindful of that. I also see it as an opportunity for you and another person to kind of band together and be able to do something that's going to bring in more resources. For Scorpio and Scorpio rising, it's a full moon eclipse in your 7th house. So this is a very big time in your relationships. It's the first time in an 18 or a 19-year period that you're having eclipses in your 7th house, which is about fated relationships, business partnerships, marriages. It's for a lot of Scorpio risings, it's going to be about make or break situations in relationships. If you're single, you might meet a very prominent person around this time, or for the next 6 months, somebody new comes into your life and they offer you stability, which a lot of Scorpios are going to like. On the flip side, if you're in a relationship and it's been rocky, especially with the square from Saturn in your 4th, home or domestic challenges, living separate from somebody, having difficult family problems, like getting involved in your relationships, can definitely affect things. And there can just be this peak of like something not feeling like it's not working. Some people might get engaged or get married as a result of this eclipse. So let's see what the cards say. The Emperor. Interesting. For a woman, this can represent like a husband, or some relationship that you have with like a man who comes in who's got a really like prominent kind of presence in your life. It can be a husband, it can be a father, it can be talking about these topics, it can be this merger of like, husbands and fathers meeting each other, or significant partners meeting other family. But the Emperor is about being in charge. So it's also saying about standing up. It's a Mars energy, right? Mars is in your sign right now. The sun is in your sign right now. So you're feeling really passionate. You're feeling like, I'm going to take charge. I'm going to make things happen. I'm going to do this. So it's really rising to the occasion in relationships. And even though it is uncomfortable, there's going to be some uncomfortable stuff as a result of this eclipse, it's showing you where your future expands by not just thinking about yourself, considering another person, giving energy to somebody and allowing them to kind of help navigate your life professionally, possibly, and where that's really going to shift things for you, and you can really kind of come into your personal power. Great card. Sag and Sag rising. This is an eclipse in your 6th. It deals with health, wellness, pets, your schedule, your day-to-day routine. In conjunction quincunxes, Sag and Taurus don't always rub each other the right way. And you can find that there can be some frustration revolving around your health, your body, some kind of crisis with your health, maybe your schedule, feeling like you're not quite on track with how you want to be feeling. Next month, there's an eclipse in your sign. So if you're feeling off with your health, wellness, fitness goals, or you're working too much and things aren't coming together, I just want to let you know it will be fine. But you need to think on your toes and be willing to adjust your schedule so that way you can prioritize health and wellness, right? This is also probably about your diet or how you're making money at work. There may need to be a sense of investing more time or more resources into your work. So you have to kind of like invest to be able to make more. That's something else I could see. There can be health crises, doctor's appointments, final results, things like that come up. Issues with pets is the other thing that I would say. Watch for that, because that can definitely happen in a big way with this eclipse. Pluto's in your 2nd house, so it can be costly doctor's appointments, costly vet bills, things like that can also come up. The World card. So interesting, because, Sag wants to travel, right? And I think Sagittarius have been bombarded with a lot more responsibility in their career recently. And it's like this back and forth frustration with like, I want to go places. I want to wrap this up. I want to be done with work so I can go on and get on with my life and go and do some fun stuff. But work keeps piling up. So it is saying that you're completing and you're wiping out and clearing out old bad behaviors and old bad habits. So that's good. And that you're going to learn some lesson. It's like you're passing the test and you're going to clear something. And maybe if you want to create a life where you have more freedom to be able to travel, it's like kind of getting all this work stuff done and getting everything organized so things are a little bit more free-flowing so you can actually make that segue in the new year. Cap and Cap rising. This is in your 5th house. This deals with true love, children, creativity, dating. It's a sister sign. So, man, you got an eclipse in your 5th, trine Pluto. It's about opening your heart opening. Huge theme for Capricorns. A lot of Capricorn placements are starting to learn how to open up and be receptive to love and security. You benefit so much from this transit. It's just ridiculous. The North Node is really going to help you come into your own creative, authentic self and start focusing more on your self-expression and possibly even children. So some Capricorns can meet the love of their life. Some Capricorns can find out they're pregnant. They can realize they want to get pregnant. Somebody can say, I love you for the first time. It's interesting. 2 cards jumped out. It was the Moon and the Queen of Swords. They just jumped out, so I'm going to read them. But this can be about you having this realization that's like, oh, well, like this is what I really want. This is what my heart wants. And you communicate that and you express that. There can be dealing with mother figures, feminine figures, air sign women, real big changes. Like you get big news about a project, or somebody calls you and tells you that they're pregnant, revolving around the eclipse. The moon is also talking about your intuition and like feeling things out before you say anything. So there can be more of a sense of you paying attention to your intuition more so than normal, and realizing that in order for you to be able to be your most authentic self, you have to really listen to that inner voice. And when this eclipse happens, there's going to be something that you feel inclined to say, right? Or some information, maybe information you receive in a dream that's confirmational. Aquarius and Aquarius rising. This is an eclipse in your 4th house. It deals with home, family, roots, where you're living, properties, parents sometimes. An eclipse here with the North Node can suggest that you are buying a house, finding a new place, investing in property, starting a garden, There's some huge celebration with your family, that there's a lot more going on with having family in the home, or maybe you're wanting to renovate your home, or you're building a home, or you're buying a home. It's also about your private life, your inner world. And so a lot of Aquariuses are going to realize that the next year is more about, how do you feel? Where do you live? Do you enjoy that? Do you feel grounded? Is it really nourishing you and making you feel secure? You will get challenged by changes with your career because of the opposition in your 10th. But you're becoming more acutely aware that home is more where the heart is. It's not necessarily a physical place. It can be a person, or it can be a particular city that just feels like home, that you need to spend more time in. A North Node eclipse here is good. It can bring about family crisis though, and the 4th house can be about ends of means. So sometimes this can be situations like, I have to go home because somebody has passed, or I have to go home and deal with an estate matter. So be prepared for that. The sun, well, the sun's in your 10th house, so it's about your career. And it's basically saying that there's a lot of responsibility. Maybe you're celebrating because a kid is being born. Maybe you're celebrating because there's a huge accomplishment. You bring your family together and you share that. It's about happiness and it's about joy. So I do see that it is more positive, especially because it's going to square Jupiter in your 1st house. So it's like this insane optimism that like everything's going good and you're just like riding on this high and totally stoked because everything's happy. But children can also bring happiness, right? And creativity can be born from this. And there can be an opportunity to be more creative and more involved with what's going on with your family, and realize that that brings you happiness. Last but not least are my Pisces. This is an eclipse in your 3rd house. New vehicles can be possible as a result of this eclipse. There can be really important meetings, buying a gadget, getting a new computer, going on a road trip, having a conversation with a sibling. It's a really great time for just interacting with people, talking to people, sharing ideas, taking notes. An eclipse here can also insinuate that you are completing a class that you've been taking. Maybe there can be something going on with one of your siblings, big news with one of your siblings. That's very possible. I could also see this as a situation where maybe there's an opportunity to travel and go somewhere and do something. I like that it's also sextiling, Jupiter in your 12th house. Jupiter's going to go back into your sign soon. So there's some stuff going on here that tells me like you might do some automatic writing, or you have a dream and you write it down, or you see something in the future in one of your dreams and you're like, oh my gosh, this is what's going to happen, and you start planning it all out. Lots of writing though. I could see a lot of writing going on with this eclipse in the 3rd house, or learning a new language perhaps. That's something else that you could do. Or a friend comes to visit you, or you go to visit a friend. Queen of Pentacles. Money-making opportunities, ideas, using your voice possibly even, or your ability to teach or share or express something, starting a blog, starting a podcast, right? Things like that can be really positive. Queen of Pentacles can be an earth sign woman, so it can be a Capricorn or a Taurus who comes into your life and assists you or offers you some kind of assistance with your 3rd house things, who says like, I can help you make money with a podcast, or yeah, I'm going to help you, learn how to start an online business and start selling stuff like that. So look for somebody like that who comes in to assist you. Equally, it can be talking about more abundance coming your way as a result of just really taking the time to ground yourself out. And if you're feeling kind of stressed out as a result of this transit, I am aware Saturn is in your 12th house. Walking can be a form of meditation. Get into the habit of walking. It's going to help kind of relieve some of this stuff and kind of clear some things out, and also give you some really nice downloads for what you should be expressing or sharing with the world. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys. A little bit of a longer video than I usually do. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it very much. I do have some openings at the end of this year in December. It's so crazy. It's almost 2022. If you want to get on my schedule, check out my website below. Check out beyondtheveiltarot.com, where you can get access to my calendar, see when I'm available. You can schedule for your time zones. I've got clients all over the world. My sessions are a combination of what I see esoterically with the tarot, using Western and evolutionary astrology, predictive methods, and just what I see intuitively. Let me know where is the eclipse affecting you in your chart. Do you have any placements conjunct 26 or 27 degrees of Taurus? How has Algol affected you? Did you resonate with any of the mythology or the things that I was discussing? You have any questions or comments, leave it below. Make sure that you subscribe. Check out my subscriptions. It is possible to subscribe now and support the channel if you like these videos, and if you like my weekly astro weather videos. Your guys' subscription and support makes it possible for me to do what I do. So please keep on keeping on. I hope you enjoy this eclipse, and I will see all of you guys very soon. Take care.